Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Indian Boxer Ring. Our guest today is Dan Buchwald. As the poster indicated, and as you might all know, Dan needs very little or no introduction in the breed of boxers. Dan actually started with, you know, started with boxers at a very young age, with the Hexastar Kennels. Dan also was a student of veterinary medicine, and he was the youngest. He was the youngest judge in the Brazilian Kennel Club history, and also he moved to the Americas in about 20 years back, or more than 20 years back, where he moved on into professional handling as well. So Dan, over the years, has actually worn multiple hats. Like I said, the hat of of a veterinary specialist, a hat of a judge, and a hat of a professional handler as well. So it's with great pleasure that I have Dan join us for this interview for Indian Boxer Ring. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for everybody watching for spending their time with us today. I'm honored and thrilled to be here today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, for the viewers that are tuned in, and for those ones that are going to be tuning in, so the way this program is going to be structured is Dan is going to share or make a presentation about boxers. He's going to share. He's going to share about how you should be looking. What are things that you should be looking for in a boxer, from the eyes of a judge, how you should be judging a boxer as well. Now, following this presentation, Dan is also going to be ready and available to take your questions. So feel free to have your questions, to ask your questions, keep it ready. And once the presentation is over, you will have an opportunity to have these questions answered by Dan. So without any further ado, Dan, if you want to actually share the presentation, I'm going to give you those controls.
Okay, sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. And what I want to do is to start by just discerning a little bit on the breed standard, how it originated and what it means and how to interpret it. That's really the blueprint of everything we do, whether we are breeders, judges, handlers, or just exhibitors. So without further delay, let's try to see what we can discuss here.
Dan, can you share your screen with me one more time, please?
Yes. All right. Is this working? Are we good to go? All right. So again, thank you so much for spending your time with me. This is a quick presentation about the boxer standard. When I talk about boxer judging, I'm talking about an objective evaluation of the dog. That means whether you're a judge, a breeder, an owner, a handler, it's just an objective way of evaluating dogs, boxers in particular. Just a quick reminder, dog shows are meant for selecting breeding stock, to keep us in track so we don't go in tangents because we are enamored with one particular trait and maybe forgetting others. Dog shows are pretty much a check and balance of what we're doing as far as breeding. And again, remember that dogs are not judged against each other. They are judged against the standard. And those who are closer to the standard of perfection are chosen as the winner. A very talented judge, former handler and then judge, the late Percy Roberts, referred to the standard as the blueprint, the breeders being the builders and the judges the building inspectors. And that's exactly how it works. In order to judge breeds, any breed, the first thing you need to understand is breed type. Breed type is that set of features that define the breed. that makes a breed unique and unlike any other. In his book, Solving the Mysteries of Breed Type, Richard Beauchamp broke down breed type into 5 groups of features, being breed character, silhouette, head and expression, movement, and coat. Let's not confuse breed type with style. Style are features that make a dog or a bloodline unique. Breed type are the features that make a breed unique. One breed, one breed type. Within a breed, there might be several different styles. So, breed character. That's the mental and physical characteristics that define not only how the breed should look like, but also how it should conduct itself. A boxer is a self-assured dog. It's an eager, curious dog. No signs of shyness, no signs of unwarranted aggression. That is definitely a paramount pillar of defining breed type. The silhouette or the outline. Another crucial parameter, when you look at a dog, the first thing you look at is the total outline. There you have an idea of balance. You have an idea of what mostly terrier people refer to as make and shape. That's what it is, the shape, the outline that defines the breed. And this is a wonderful example. Those who don't know, this is Canadian bred, top producing dog, Milan's Fashion Hint. Head and expression. That is a very unique feature that, again, it's a breed type defining feature. And as much as you can try to define all the angles, proportions, and components that make a head an excellent head, once all those components come together and look right and balance themselves right, the result of that is the unique expression. And that is a subjective parameter. But once you can understand the expression of the dog, you're pretty much on the right track to understand that all the parts are there, or what's missing and what's not. Movement, movement as an element of breed type. And that's a very important thing to consider. Not every fault in movement is a fault in breed type, but the kind of movement, the overall efficiency, look, and elasticity of the movement, that is a breed type defining feature. Like an Old English Sheepdog or a Pekingese will have the unique roll. A Min Pin will have a Hackney gait. Those are breed type features. In boxers, you want an elastic, ground covering, efficient, and as much as possible, effortless movement. That is type. And then coat. Boxers are short-coated breeds, tight-fitting coat. They come in fawn and brindle with different shades, and they may or may not have any given amount of white, up to a third based on the current standard, a third of the body surface, and they have a black mask. When those things are missing, when you see a dog that's blue or Harlequin or anything like that, obviously you are deviating from breed type. It seems basic, but it's very true. So after we addressed all those features of breed type, I think it's very important for us to remember that we as breeders, judges, exhibitors, handlers, we are all in this unspoken agreement that what we're doing is preserving breed type. We are not reinventing it. We are not changing it. We are not messing with it. All we need to do is understand what breed type is and preserve it. This is not a lab for experimentation. This is just a commitment to respect the breeders that came before us, that outlined and envisioned what this breed was supposed to be, and preserve that. That's our commitment. And this is why I like this phrase where it says, it has been said that at its best, Preservation engages the past in a conversation with the present over a mutual concern for the future. So breed type is to be preserved. If anything, this probably would be one of the most important things I would like you guys to retain from this presentation. And once you understand breed type, the best way to evaluate it, to look at it, is to understand excellence and to create a mental template of excellence. When you have those images ingrained in your mind, and when you look at a dog, these images will pop up in your mind to see how close the dog you're evaluating comes to your mental template. And this is a great way to judge dogs because it's objective and as much as possible unbiased. For us to understand type, once again, I would like to go back to the very basics, to the concept that function defines form. There is a very close correlation between form and function. Boxers were originally used as bull baiting dogs. That was a sport at a time in our past, nothing to be proud about, but that's how it was. And that's what they did. For that, you have to have built temperament, and in particular with boxers, a certain kind of bite that will allow that to happen. Boxers were also used as war dogs. They are great police dogs, personal guard dogs, family dogs, and for all that, remember, temperament is crucial. A balanced-minded dog, an athletic-built dog, a dependable dog. That's what boxers are all about. When they have that, they can do all kinds of things. And in order to remember form and function, we can't do that without also remembering a little bit very quickly about the history of the breed. Boxers derive from the old Bull and Beiser, which was a breed developed during the Roman Empire. It became very widespread throughout Europe, and that was the foundation that boxers derived from. In the late 1800s, the very first boxer club ever was founded, the Munich Boxer Club. In 1898, this one crucial bitch, Meta van der Passage, came about. She's believed to be the mother of the breed. The whole breeding stock goes back to her. Please notice that here in Munich Boxer Club picture in one of their meetings, several of their dogs were white, some were solid. There's a flashy guy right here. And also notice that Meta was a white bitch. It wasn't until some 20 years later, when World War I came about, that the German army felt that boxers were very useful as war dogs. For them, white dogs and flashy dogs, this is the time when boxers became a disqualification. But remember, the original breeding stock, these dogs were not bred to be war dogs. That was not the original idea. The original breeding stock included white dogs. The foundation of the breed has white dogs behind. That's part of the gene pool. And another very important thing that happened here during the Munich Boxer Club early days was these visionary breeders developed what was called, and it's still called, the Munich Silhouette. Please take a long look at this. Try to have this ingrained in your mind as well. This is not what they were trying. The dogs that they have in this picture are not what they were trying to preserve. These were the tools that they were using to get to the Munich Silhouette, and that still holds until today. Munich Silhouette is a synonymous of breed type. We cannot talk about the history of the breed without quickly addressing von Dom Kennels of Frau Stockmann and Philip Stockmann. Again, a big visionary breeder. She quickly understood what the breed was supposed to look like, and very cleverly did several breedings that produced a huge upgrade in the look of the breed. When World War II came about, after World War II was over, with Europe basically devastated, particularly Germany, with hyperinflation and socioeconomic stagnation. This was at the time when American breeders went to Germany and bought some of the very best of the German gene pool and brought them to America. I know this might sound biased for those who are in favor of the so-called European style that's currently being bred, but the very essence, it's undeniable by studying history, the very essence of the gene pool from Von Dom came to America. And this is how the breed started to be bred and preserved in America. In her later years, Frau Stockman came to America to judge a puppy match in Potomac, Maryland, if I'm not wrong. And among 100 and some puppies, she picked this one right here, which later on turned out to be the great Bangaway of Syracrest. She mentions this experience in her book, My Life with Boxers, and the whole story of her breeding program, Von Dom Kennels, is here in this book. It's a highly recommended book that I think we all should have and read. So here it is, Frau Stockman finding this puppy at the puppy match, who turned out to be the great Bangaway of Syracrest. Bangaway held the top winning record up until this year here in America. He's still the top producing boxer of all time. And the relevance is not really by the numbers, but by the fact that he was a game changer. He was the dog that, although not perfect, he was the dog that came so close to what was originally envisioned for the breed. He stamped that into his offspring. And many, if not all, of the top winning boxers in America today will all trace back to this dog. So for me, the question, would Bangaway win today, is not really as important as without Bangaway, none of the winners of today would exist. So that's what makes him the game-changing dog that he was. While we mentioned books, I would like to highlight 3 books that I highly recommend people buying and reading and having as a reference. John Wagner, The Boxer, he follows up. This would almost be the sequel of My Life with Boxers, where he's telling the story not just of the foundation of the breed, the origination of the breed, but also how things happened from the time those original Von Dom dogs were brought to America and how the breed developed here. Canine Terminology from Dr. Harold Spira from Australia, wonderful book to understand the basics of canine conformation. And McDowell Lyons, The Dog in Action. You want to understand movement, you need to have this book. It's absolutely great. Having said that, let's quickly jump into the breed standard and try to discuss a little bit of what the standard is telling us, so we can understand and therefore preserve this breed. We start with a very basic concept that the most important thing on a boxer is his general appearance. It's a medium-sized, square-built dog. The first consideration when you judge a boxer is the overall appearance and overall balance. After that, you go into head and other body components, but you gotta have that overall general appearance first. It's very important to be able to see a masculine male and a feminine female. You don't want a dog that's too refined, and you don't want a female that's too doggy. The breed standard calls for a balance between substance and elegance. It's a fine line. It's a concept that you see more with your gut than with your eyes. But once you find it, that's something that you keep. And difference between sexual dimorphism dimorphism is what it's called, the difference between males and females. It's a very important trait in boxers. Then we pass to judge the head. We go on to judge the head. The most important feature, the very unique feature of a boxer head is the blunt muzzle. It's about 1/3 the length of the head. That means from the tip of the nose to the stop compared to the tip of the nose to the occiput. So if you were to, in other words, put this in different figures, from the occiput to the stop is twice the length from the stop to the nose. Also, you want it to be, this muzzle is supposed to be square, and that's about 2/3 of the width of the skull. That's the width of the muzzle. Again, like I mentioned, for the body pictures, you should have a template of excellence ingrained in your mind of what a correct boxer head is. I believe these 3 heads show that eloquently. And again, remember, Munich Silhouette, 1905, they wanted the boxer head where the muzzle is half the length of the back skull, or the muzzle is 1/3 the length of the head. In North America, American breeders are preserving that concept. Continental Europe, unfortunately, for reasons that I do not understand, are shortening the muzzle of a boxer to less than far less than Munich Silhouette has requested. And they refer that with a euphemism, a word that's actually very bothersome to me, where it says hypertypical. It is not hypertypical. There is no such thing. It's either typical or it's not. If instead of breed type we were talking about anesthesia, hypertypical would be an overdose. And yeah, granted, the patient is feeling no pain, but I hate to say it, your patient is dead. So there is no such thing as hypertypical. What there is one breed type, and the Munich Silhouette has defined that in 1905. Our job is not to reinvent the breed. Our job is to preserve it. The muzzle. The formation of the muzzle is formed by 3 parameters: the formation of jawbones, placement of teeth, and the texture of lips. If you have those 3 parameters properly developed, you're going to have that square muzzle that's very unique to the breed. This headshot represents that very eloquently. When you have all those 3 parameters properly present, what you'll always see is that boxers will have a wrinkle that starts in the inner corner of the eye and goes towards the outer corner of the lip. That is always present. It's described in the American Standard, and it's always present in a proper head. The American Standard describes the boxer bite in detail. The lower line of incisors is straight, wide, and sits between the 2 lower canines. The upper jaw, the incisors are slightly arched, and what you will see is that the back part of the lower canine sits right in front of the front part of the upper corner incisor on both sides. You can see that description here very properly. Here's the straight wide bite with the canines on either side. And when you have deviations where one side is more undershot than the other, that's when you get a right bite. And sometimes in more extreme cases, you'll see a dog just biting its lip and the canine showing. That's typically a consequence of a right bite. Again, the concept of form and function. I was always very curious when I saw presentations about the breed standard at the National, how they describe the efficiency of the boxer bite. And that got me thinking, if that is correct, we should find a parallel in nature where a bite that grabs rather and hangs on to rather than a bite that cuts would exist. And this so-called sport of decades ago, more than a century ago, where bull biting was something that boxers were good at, with grabbing rather than cutting the bull skin, that would still exist in the wild, and it does. There are bats that are equally undershot, that rely on their bite not just to feed, but to cling on to its prey so they can get their blood. And there is a parallel of undershot bites being extremely efficient in grabbing on and not cutting and not damaging as much the prey. So, and here's an early example of a dog really clinging on to something with its bite. As far as eye shape, the boxer standard is the only standard of the whole working group where the shape of the eye is not described. I don't know why the standard committee was a little shy about it, or a little unsure about it, but they do not describe the shape of the eye. However, with a little objective thinking, we can try to define what the shape of the eye is for boxers. Dogs in general have this capacity with their genetic, so to speak, plasticity of a whole lot of different shapes. You can breed them to size, to head lengths, and so on. And what is called a brachiocephalic, I'm sorry, let me try and go back on this slide. I don't know what I did here. I'm sorry, just 1 second. We'll go right back to where we were. I hit some wrong button. Thanks for your patience. Almost there. All right, there we are. All right, so when you look at Pekingese, which is a brachiocephalic breed, where the head is short, the proportion between length and width of the head defines it as a short head. The shorter the head, the wider the head, the more frontal the placement of the eye. The more frontal the placement of the eye, the rounder the eye will be. When you elongate the head, you make it proportionally narrower. The longer, the narrower the head will be, the more lateral the placement of the eye will be. And when that happens, the eye shape elongates along the lines of the length of the skull. So that's why you have a Doberman with an almond-shaped eye, a Pekingese with a circular eye. The thing with boxers is that they're neither. They're not circular, they're definitely not almond-shaped. It's something in between. Judy Horton, on her website, Worldwide Boxers, she defines the shape of the boxer eye as that of a lemon, not by color, by shape. Boxers have dark eyes. We must have dark eyes. But that is the correct shape. That is a compromise, an in-between, between the circular eye of a Pekingese, the long, elongated, almond-shaped eye of a Doberman. Boxers' eyes are definitely lemon-shaped. As far as ear cropping, there was a time when the American standard only allowed for cropped ears. Now common sense prevailed, and it's an optional thing. I would rather see a dog with natural ears than one that was cropped and the ears are not healed properly, or not standing, and so on. But either way, the most important thing when it comes to ears is that they should not be an obstacle for you to understand the proper expression and the proper build of the head. If all the angles, proportions, and so on are correct, and the ears are set on high, That is really the most important thing. We get used to seeing dogs with natural ears. We get used to seeing dogs with cropped ears, but we should not have much of a leeway when it comes to finding the correct proportions and expression in a dog's head. Markings. Boxers come from what is called plain or solid with almost no white or no white at all, to very fleshy. The idea here is that the white markings are allowed, but they should not detract from the correct expression of the dog. I myself would like to see the standard change from that 1/3 disqualification, and I'll address that later, to things that are more palpable and measurable, like the white markings should not cover either partially or totally the eye, for instance, regardless of the dog having any given amount of white markings. The black mask is essential and should always be there in the background, even though a part of it will be replaced by white markings. As far as the neck goes, boxers should have a long, ample length neck with a nice arch, and they blend smoothly into the withers. The only way for that to happen is to have a good layback of shoulders, which also is a reminder that all parts are intertwined. So the quality of one part impacts others, and the neck is a perfect example of that. As far as top line, the top line can be slightly sloping or parallel when the dog is standing, but should be level when the dog is in motion. You will see dogs that are extremely angulated in the rear and balanced with a limited amount of angles in the front. Those dogs, when they move around, they tend to have this sloping, almost German Shepherd-like top line, which is just not correct for the breed. Let's just go back to basics. Just a quick review of boxer conformation. Boxers are square. Height and length are the same. The angulation in the front and in the rear should be about 90 degrees, which is referred to as a square angle. When you elongate the line from the shoulder blade towards the ground, that's pretty much where the step, where the foot will land when the dog is taking a step forward. So it's easy to understand that if the shoulder is not slanted enough, the dog will take smaller steps, and therefore more energy, a bigger number of steps to cover the same amount of ground. So this is a parameter of function and efficiency. The length, the height of the dog at the shoulders is twice the height of the dog at the elbows. So the elbow is half the height of the dog. And again, remembering what we discussed earlier, the muzzle of a boxer is square. And I say this because I usually tell people, you want to find a good boxer, find 3 squares: a square muzzle, square angles, and square body. If you can find those 3 squares on a boxer, you're already way ahead of the game. So there's your picture of balance and symmetry here. Just a quick reminder, back to basics. In order to evaluate angulation, front and rear angulation, I want to make sure that you guys remember that you don't need to have an X-ray vision to understand front angulation and rear angulation. You need to find cardinal points. And those cardinal points, in reality, as you can see in this photo here, in this drawing here, they do not totally overlap the bones that are underneath them. So it is fine if you know that this bone is named this way or that way. I don't really think it's that important that you know that this is the scapula. It will not hurt you to know that, but you definitely need to know that between the withers and the point of shoulders, that line is called the shoulder. And equally here, you have the upper arm, and you don't need to know that this is a humerus or not. If you know, that's great. If you don't, it really does not impact all that much your capacity to evaluate dogs. You're not judging X-rays, you're judging the exterior of a dog. So very quickly, the front assembly calls for, in a boxer, calls for a long and slanted shoulder blade, about 45 degrees with the horizontal. The upper arm is equally long and forms a 90-degree angle with the shoulder. The pastern are slightly slanted forward. The distance withers to the ground is twice the distance from the elbow to the ground. And when you drop a line in the middle of the shoulder, it will hit the heel pad. Why is that important? It's important because many boxers nowadays are having a rather short upper arm. When you shorten the upper arm, you're also losing a little bit of the slant of the pasterns. And that happens because this is the line of balance that the dogs find to stand on their feet. When you start moving that whole assembly from the upper arm, therefore the forearm, forward, the pastern will become more upright, and sometimes in extreme cases they will even knuckle over. So when you're looking at pastern faults, in reality what you're looking at is the consequence of a short upper arm. And then the rib cage should be level with the elbow, like right here. You can see they're on the same level. The rib cage is absolutely crucial to define front angulation. Not just the length of the bones, but the rib cage itself is really important because there is no direct joints between the front angles, the bones that define the front assembly, and the body itself. It sits on top of the rib cage, on the side of the rib cage, and it's held together by tendons, muscles, and ligaments. So if you have a flat, underdeveloped rib cage, it will directly impact the front angulation. Things are intertwined. They're not isolated. You cannot ever look at any feature separated from the context of where it sits. And the rib cage is a very good example of that. Rib cage impacts directly the front assembly. You can see here a dog with a rather shallow, narrow, underdeveloped rib cage. You can see the inside of the dog's upper arm, where normally the forechest should be, like in this case right here, a fuller forechest. The forechest in the standard is a part of the dog's silhouette. And the foot, the one thing that is being done very well, especially in England, is to preserve this tight, well-arched toes. For some reason, Americans are at some point deviating a little bit, not intentionally, but finding hardship in preserving proper feet. The foot, the cat foot, is a consequence of tight tendons, shorter bones, and also temperament. A dog has sweat glands on their paws, and that those sweat glands are there because in moments of fight or flight, when they're nervous, when they're ready to run away to save their lives, that sweat will, that moisture from the sweat will provide a better grip on the ground and allow for a quicker escape. So there is a relationship of temperament and the shape of the foot. I suspect that some of the American dogs that have less than perfect cat feet also have less than perfect temperaments. And I've seen that in several cases when dogs are young and insecure, they will show a flatter foot. And as they mature and they blossom and they become more self-assured and more assertive, the feet get better. So please don't think that the only reason that feet are less than tight cat feet, like hare foot and so on, is just temperament. But don't forget that temperament plays a role in this as well. Again, with the rear angulation, remember the cardinal points. This creates a 90-degree angle between the hip or the croup and the upper thigh. There is no solid correlation between the bones, underlying bones, and these lines. Those lines is something that you must know. The bones is something that you may know, but it's not that important. The lines are crucial. And again, the angle of the croup will also define the tail set. If you have a slanted croup, you usually have a lower tail set. A flatter croup will provide a higher tail set. Boxers sit somewhere in between a terrier and a sighthound. They have a slight slant of croup. The tail is normally carried at an angle, but when they are really eager and excited, the tail will go up a little higher. So don't ever forget that when you're looking at tail set, you're really, again, intertwined with the formation of the croup. The width, the length, and the slant of it has a lot to do with the tail set. In case I haven't pointed this out enough, I would like to remind everybody once again, boxers are square. I also would like to highlight that we talked a lot about angles and measurements and so on, but judging dogs is art and science. There is the subjective component that you should not forget, and that has to do with balance, style, expression, elegance, and other such parameters. Judging dogs is art and science. You cannot overcome the lack of one with the excess of the other. You cannot be too scientific and forget the subjective parameters, and you cannot be totally just judging on the subjective and forget the objective parameters as well. So a balanced mind will produce a balanced evaluation. The tail, like I addressed before, as far as tail set, I would also like to highlight that the American standard says that an undocked tail should be severely penalized. I like boxers with docked tails. I think it looks better. It looks cleaner outlook, but that's a man-made procedure. To severely penalize a dog because somebody didn't dock the tail sounds to me counterproductive. It makes no sense. It isn't the standard. I'm not advocating deviating from the standard when you make your decisions, but I'm advocating the standard to come up with a better description so we can just all be on the same page. What we're doing is preserving breed type. This is a picture of Bangaway, and it was photoshopped on with the tail. I do not believe that Bangaway's potential to be a top producer would have been impaired if his tail was left natural. So I think that there's a little common sense that needs to be brought back to this particular chapter of the breed standard in America. I want to address real quickly some principles of balance and symmetry when it affects movement. If you guys ever try to ride a bike, if you try to balance yourself standing still on a bike, it's almost impossible, if not totally impossible. Yet when we are riding, when the component of speed goes into this, it's very easy to stay balanced and stay on a bike. That's the same happens with dogs when they move, especially these longer-legged dogs. When they start moving, their legs starts to converge towards the center line. That's how efficiency is. That's how the principles of balance translate into efficiency in the gait. Because of the kind of rib cage and muscles and structure of a boxer, boxers will not single track. Single track is when the pads hit the center line, just like here on the bike. That's a single tracking. But boxers tend to approach their legs without deviating elbows or anything, just in a straight line, converging towards the center line. As speed increases, you will see a higher rate of conversion towards the center line. Common trait on a boxer, you will see single track. Boxers really do not, but they tend to. That's a normal thing. And in order to have an efficient gait, you need to have balance of angulation front and rear. You need to have all the symmetry that was previously described, the proper conformation. and temperament. Again, temperament is a very important component of movement, because if a dog is shy, if a dog is not feeling well, if a dog doesn't have, so to speak, the mind in the game, he'll not move efficiently. You should not look at a dog like you look at a motorcycle and think, well, if I put this tires, if I put this fuel, I'm going to go this fast. Just like us, they can wake up and have a bad day, not be in the mood. A dog that's built right will not move right if his mind is not in it. If he's afraid, if he was attacked by a dog before he got in the ring, or whatever reason, don't forget that temperament is an intrinsic component of movement. Here's a beautiful example of side gait, a ground covering, efficient gait, proper reach, drive from the rear, strong top line level. This dog is spending very little amount of energy to cover the most amount of ground his body can allow. I would like to show this really quickly for you guys. This is a beautiful example of movement. This is a great dog from a couple of decades ago. Notice how beautifully she lands her feet square. No need to restack her. She's just totally square, solid build. There she goes, covering ground, a slight conversion of the legs. You could see there the solid top line, the tail set. That's a beautiful sight to see. Nice rib cage, beautiful bone. Really a lovely, lovely bitch. As far as color, the standard requires either a fawn or a brindle. Different shades are allowed. There was a time where deeper colors preferred was part of the standard. I wish that would be brought back. But either way, there is no preference as far as markings are concerned. That why markings may or may not be present. The so-called plain or solid dog is perfectly acceptable. The standard does call currently for a disqualification for boxers with more than a third of white markings. I would like to stress one more time, it's extremely important for boxers to have proper temperament. It is a feature of breed type, like we discussed early. The breed standard correctly calls for shyness, among other deviations of temperament, to be severely penalized, as it should. Remember, temperament is a underlying component of posture, and when we're judging dogs, what we're looking at is posture. So a dog that's shy, a dog that's too aggressive, or whichever variation extreme variation of a sound temperament will impact the body's posture and will impact movement. You can see on this example right here, this roachiness to the back has more to do with the dog's submissive position than the conformation itself. Who's to say that if this dog had a more self-assured temperament, the top line would be totally level. Boxers are great dogs with children. Boxers are great guard dogs. You cannot have that without proper temperament. Just a quick addressing on showmanship. For me, and I say that as a handler who makes a living out of showing dogs, obviously showmanship is a very important thing, but it's not a replacement for the essence of breed type. That comes first. Showmanship is like a beautiful frame, like you have here with Mona Lisa, enhancing the beauty of the picture. You cannot just use that frame and have anything in it and overvalue showmanship over breed type. Again, addressing disqualification, the breed standard calls for no more than a third of white as acceptable. Above that is a disqualification. Unfortunately, that's not something we can do in an objective way. We have problems with when you just show a simple chart with a pie chart, with people agreeing what is 1/3, what's more, what's less, let alone a dog with all the different shapes and proportions and so on. So evaluating the proportion of 1/3 to 2/3 of white markings on a dog, it's impossible, and objectively impossible, and therefore it should not be a disqualification in my interpretation, because that is a very important feature. It can determine whether a dog is fit or not fit for breeding. So this disqualification issue is something that I would strongly recommend be revisited by the standard committee. And just in case you were wondering, in the pie chart, this is 33%, this is 1/3 of white, whichever you guessed. This is the 33% on a pie chart. Obviously, with the way the standard is written, there's some contradictions as far as disqualification, because if we know that a dog will normally have white markings on the neck and will normally have fawn or brindle on the body, you take a dog, and again, this is a Photoshop version of Bangaway's photo. This dog would possibly be assumed as a disqualification because of the amount of white markings, yet he has the desired long neck and the short loin, yet this lesser quality dog with a short neck and a long loin would be acceptable. So if we are judging dogs to preserve breed type, this requirement of disqualification with 1/3 is not a helpful tool. And then the other paradox is that as dogs go older and they grow gray, it's very hard to tell what was white markings and what is gray of aging. It isn't fair to get a dog of high quality and have it disqualified from the veterans class because of the gray that's being perceived as white markings because of age. Again, a reminder, this is from Munich Boxer Club. There were white dogs in the gene pool from early on. This is the mother of the breed. She was white. The white gene is an intrinsical part of the gene pool. We've been in America disqualifying, eliminating, avoiding breeding with whites for decades. Nothing has changed. The whites will continue to appear in breedings of fleshy to fleshy dogs because that's part of the gene pool. So I would think that wisdom would dictate taking those white dogs and using them in an intelligent way, in a science-based, with a science-based approach, because there might be some very precious components for those dogs that would be beneficial for the gene pool. Instead of eliminating them, use them intelligently. Again, there is research regarding white boxers, the white gene, and so on. I would say in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. And I would like to see the parent clubs, not just in America, but throughout the world, understanding the genetics and the rationale of breeding for color and the white markings in boxers, and use that in the favor of the gene pool rather than label it based on prejudice as something unethical, because it's not. If you're breeding for health, if you're breeding for breed type, you cannot be labeled unethical. And last but not least, I think it's really important. That's another thing that I would very much like to have to pass to everybody listening to the seminar today, that these dogs, boxers or any other breed, they are creatures with emotions. They are creatures with feelings. They have needs, they have wants, and they have this intrinsic need to coexist with people. Learn to evaluate them, learn to judge them, learn to understand the standard and so on, but never forget that they have feelings and that they deserve a respect that transcends their quality, that transcends anything else that they can be part of as far as breeding program and winning and so on. So learn to admire the essence of a boxer. Learn to admire everything they have to give to you, not just in a whelping boxer in the show ring, but as part of your life. You are their whole life. They live to make you happy. Don't forget that. Respect them, love them, and understand them as creatures with emotions, because that's exactly what they are. I want to thank you all very much for listening to what I had to say. If you're interested in more articles or topics regarding dog judging, I have some articles I published in other magazines that are on my website. You're welcome to go visit. There's a link there with my email address. You guys are welcome to send questions if something comes up later. And I'm always open to dialogue. I'm a passionate boxer lover, and I love exchanging ideas with other passionate boxer lovers as well. Thank you so much. All right. There we are.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Dan. That was a very, very informative session for us, and I'm sure this knowledge that we got in the last 1 hour is kind of an eye opener of sorts for both both tenured as well as seasoned boxer fanciers as well. And this information, of course, is going to be available on YouTube. And we can actually. This information is available for you to go back and see if you had a question. But I think it's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge acquired over more than 4 decades of being in boxers. Now, having said that, Dan, I do want to actually ask you some questions. Of course, there's a lot of information, but there's also a lot of questions that you covered. So I'm not going to ask you the same questions again, but I'm going to have a few different questions.
That's fine.
Okay,
that's fine.
Now, of course, viewers that are watching this broadcast could actually also put your questions under the comment section, and I'll make sure that I have Dan post those questions to Dan as well. Now, Dan, you have been a mentor for different breeders over the years. Now, did you have a mentor yourself? And if you did, what did you learn from the mentor? The second part of this question is, as a mentor yourself, what do you believe in a hands-on approach or a hands-off approach?
Yes. All right. I did have quite a few mentors. There are two that I would like to mention. One was absolutely wonderful lady called Damra Bota. She's a Basenji breeder, and she was a very successful handler. She still makes my heart beat faster every time I see her because I owe so much to her. She took the time to teach me how to show a dog, how to stack a dog, how to understand the way dogs interact with handlers and with people. Um, she's just a kind, giving person, and I wish I was 1/10 of what she is. She's just amazing. Um, when it comes to dog evaluation, I was very lucky to have a mentorship of a lady in Brazil. Her name was Filomena Ballo. She was an Irish setter, English setter, and whippet breeder. And she said one thing that I would like to repeat here because that to me always comes to mind when I'm looking at dogs. You go to a dog show, you see a dog that's really exciting and you fall in love with the dog, or you go and you see a dog this is really not something I want to be anywhere near it. And after a couple of times, like looking at dogs like that, she said to me, if you find a dog you really like, I challenge you to find 3 faults. If you find a dog that you really do not like, I challenge you to find 3 virtues. And the good thing about that, when you start thinking that way, is that it keeps you grounded. You take that emotional part away when you see a dog and you fall in love with. I mean, that's a great thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the back of your mind, I hear Philomena telling me, find 3 faults there. And likewise with the bad dogs, find 3 virtues there. So now you put aside your emotional, passionate component aside, and you start looking at dogs objectively. And I'm very thankful for those 2 ladies that spent so much time with me and helped me shape my way of thinking and my way of looking at dogs and dealing with dogs. As far as me as a mentor, I don't know. I find it hard to see myself as a mentor because I don't think I'm there yet. I'm nowhere near the caliber of those people, but I learned what I learned and I'm happy to share. If it's on a hands-off approach, meaning somebody gives me a phone call and says, what do you think of this? Or send me a picture. I'm happy to, give my opinion for whatever it's worth. When we are in a group and somebody brings me a dog or has a litter that's being whelped or a puppy question and so on, hands-on, it's great because it's far more eloquent if you're there and you can touch it and feel it and show it and say, don't do it this way, do it that way. But again, bottom line, this is a big journey. We're all learning. I have a lot to learn. I'm not coming here to teach. I'm coming here to share what I know. And I know that every time somebody asks me a question, because they make me think and they make me reevaluate what I believe in, I'm learning from the questions. I'm not really teaching. It's just a exchange of ideas. It's a fluid, dynamic interaction. So thank you for maybe thinking of me as a mentor. I find it hard to see myself as such.
Thank you so much, Dan. Now, actually, moving on to the other question, I know you actually authored a book many years back called The Boxer Blueprint. Now, how important do you feel that it is for every boxer breeder to have a blueprint in their head? Now, the second part of this question is, has Dan's blueprint changed over the years?
Yes. Actually, I wrote a book called The Boxer Blueprint, and I'm working on the 2nd edition for exactly that reason. Because yes, like I said, the knowledge is something fluid and dynamic, so it changes. You evolve. You have passions and objectives in your earlier years in the sport of dog that change as you mature, priorities change, your comprehension of the breed and the breed standard changes. So yes, I do think what you call blueprint, I don't want that to be confused with my book, so instead of using the word blueprint, I will call it template. And yes, once you understand the breed, once you understand the standard, you develop a template in your mind. You're comparing dogs that you see to those templates that you have imprinted in your mind. So I think it's the best way to judge dogs is to develop a mental template and compare the dogs you're looking at to those templates.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, again, I know you clarified this term. People interchangeably use the term type and style.
Right.
Now, I want to actually ask you a question about style. Now, I know that you have in the past tried to blend styles. When I say style, you try to blend English style boxes with American style boxes. What are your thoughts about blending styles? And again, this is very appropriate question from the Indian context because people blend styles in India. But what are your thoughts about blending styles?
Well, I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you don't deviate from breed type. The fundamental issue is to understand what the boxer was meant to be and look like and so on. The reason I went to England and I went to Winnowick to bring a lovely, lovely bitch to be part of my breeding program, it's because at that time, I could not find consistency in front assemblies, proper front assemblies, like you would find in England. It wasn't as much that I wanted the British style in my dogs. I wanted the British fronts in my dogs. There's nothing wrong with the British style. It's just that my understanding of my vision was far more Americanized, but that would not change the fact that at the time, and even today, front assemblies are very challenging. If you're going to do outcrosses when you bring dogs from Europe and America and South America and so on and start breeding them together, remember that, first of all, breeding is never something that you do for the next generation. It's like a game of chess. You're looking several generations in the future. You're trying to incorporate something, and you preserve your style if you like it. The stylish heads, the temperaments, the attitudes, the looks, and so on. You want to preserve those things, but there's always something that needs to be added, because what we're looking for, the perfection we're looking for, is elusive. It doesn't really exist. You're just trying to get closer and closer to it. When I did that way back, this was some 20 some years ago, boxers in America were different than they are now. Unfortunately, we lost a few of the bloodlines where you could go to a certain kennel and say, my dogs need better croups and tail sets, and this kennel is so good at it, they're so consistent at it, that I can go there and get that and maybe incorporate that and into my gene pool. Things are a little more diluted nowadays. I also think that currently in Europe and even in the UK, there's a certain prevalence of the so-called continental, quote-unquote, type or look, where balance went out the window, where the rears are so underdeveloped that the fronts look like a light bulb, and the top line, you cannot tell what the withers are, because the neck and the shoulders and the top line is just this one straight line all the way to this tiny little rear. Reminds me of like a Mighty Mouse. I don't like that. Boxers were not designed to be like that. So I don't know what the point is there. And I don't know how much good you can bring into preserving breed type if you're going to that deviation, that excess. But anyway, that's how I see it. You can outcross as much as you want. You should ultimately figure out a way to establish a family of dogs that look alike, that are consistent in their good features, and keep in the back of your mind what needs to be improved and work towards that.
Wonderful. I think you touched upon the exaggerated front assemblies in the European dogs. I've got a viewer question here for you, Dan. What are the drawbacks of the over exaggerated front assemblies as you see it?
Well, I'm not sure if it's an exaggerated front assembly or an underdeveloped rear assembly, but either way you describe it, what we're talking about is a deviation of balance. Without balance, you're already impacting outline, and the silhouette, remember, is a fundamental component of breed type. So what's happening is that for God knows what excuse, we are deviating from breed type. We are reinventing a breed. We are creating labels like hypertypical to describe something that no other word better than a fault would describe. So what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Are we inventing a new breed? If so, fine. Just don't call it boxer. Call it something else, because it's not a boxer.
Right. True. Dan, I want to actually move on to a question about breeding. Now, this is actually this is a common question that, this is a common answer. Always research your pedigrees. Look at the pedigree, study your ancestors, in fact, you actually alluded to that point as well, looking at what has produced, what we've got in the past in the pedigree, while
Yes.
blending the pedigrees. Again, for the benefit of somebody who is new to the breed or who is a novice breeder, what does an experienced or an accomplished breeder look for while researching a pedigree? What are they looking for?
Well, the pedigree is, in a way, the recipe of how to get to the dog you're looking at. That's how it was made. What you do, you not only look at the winning record of the dogs back there, but you also look at their capacity to produce. If you're looking at a pedigree that's filled with dogs with, say, excellent heads, the odds of getting that in the offspring are higher. So it's not just knowing that this dog is famous or this dog was a best in show winner, but was he able to produce their good features? The dogs behind him, were they able to produce several others like him, or is he a one-off, a fluke, so to speak? So you're looking for consistency, whether it's an individual trait or a group of traits. That's what you look at. So knowing the pedigree means knowing what the dogs look like and what they were able to produce.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan. Now, just for the benefit of viewers in India, where artificial insemination, again for you, Dan, just to give you some perspective, artificial insemination in dogs was approved by the parent body in India, the Kennel Club of India, in May of this year, like a few months back. So there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of thirst in people wanting to know about artificial insemination. So my next question to you is about that. Now, do you look at artificial insemination as an important tool for breed progression?
I look at artificial insemination as an important tool for breed preservation.
I would
what
say
it does,
preservation, yes.
Yeah, what it does. First, it allows to preserve the gene pool of precious dogs far beyond their lifetime. So nowadays in America, you might be able to use a dog that died 30 years ago. And that may be a very important tool because, like I said, some bloodlines are being diluted and dissolved. And maybe your best way to change that trend is to go back and find, I don't want to name names because I don't want to come across as biased or partial, but find a dog that's been, whose semen was frozen and kept, that could really be of positive impact to what you have right now. So if we are losing fronts, but there's a dog that was a great producer way back that was notorious for producing fronts, that's a wonderful thing. So it's, remember, it's about preservation. It's a link to allow us to stay on track. So that's one. Two, there's an economic impact on frozen semen. For breeders in India or all over the world, if they're looking for a stud dog, it's much cheaper to buy frozen semen and inseminate the bitch and have a whole litter of dogs than to hope to get an offspring of somebody that would be sold to you, that would be as good a producer as that frozen semen dog was, and so on. So it's a new tool, and it allows you to explore the potential of those producers. So that's a very good thing. In that sense, again, you got to understand conformation, the potential of the dog as a producer, what worked, what didn't work, as far as breeding to different bloodlines and so on. Health, I think that America is leading, is one of the leaders, I would say, about health testing. Different European countries do different health tests than we do. They probably have different health issues than we do, along with others that overlap. But nonetheless, if you're gonna breed a young bitch that you own right now to a stud dog from way back, from before all the health checks were performed, wouldn't it be great if you knew that your bitch is totally healthy, that she has great temperament, and that she's able to produce a healthier litter? So you might be, when you bring a frozen from many decades ago, you bring a whole lot of good, but like in any breeding, you're also bringing things that are not that good. So
True.
Temperament, pedigree, conformation, and health checks. Those are 4 ingredients that are crucial to do a good, healthy breeding program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan. Now, in terms of the assessing, so my next question is about, the biggest issue that breeders face when they have a good litter, right? Am I picking the right puppy up? Is this puppy going to be the one with show potential? Some people, and there's a different theories about what is the right age to assess the puppy. And my next question to you is about that. What, according to you, is the correct age to assess the show potential of a puppy?
That's a tough one. It depends. The right answer is it depends. I would say when I was breeding, I could pretty much tell my better puppies from the lesser puppies between 6 and 8 weeks of age. If there are some minor issues, I would wait a little longer. But then again, remember, breeding, to really have a solid breeding program, it's inevitable that you develop a bloodline. When you have consistency in your dogs, the job of picking puppies in the litter is so much easier, because you've seen that again and again, how those puppies looked when they were young, how they developed, and you incorporate that knowledge into the future generations. When you have inconsistency in a style, when you have dogs that are tall that produce too short, and dogs that are long and may or may not produce short bodies and so on, makes things so much harder. So I'm a big fan of old school breeding, where you develop a bloodline. The bloodline is a reflection of your vision, what you understood, what you learned about what this breed was supposed to look like. That's the message that you're passing on. These are my priorities. So when you have a bloodline, you have a much easier job. When you don't, when you just see a litter that's an outcross or the result of breedings that are not so consistent or similar in looks, your job gets harder. But I would still say around 8 to 12 weeks is a good indicator of evaluation for puppies.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan. Now, I think you answered my next question, which was going to be about how important it is to establish kennel type. but I guess you answered that question there. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Now, my next question is, no, it's about growth plates. With growth plates of boxes, they say growth plates, close at 18 months. It could close, in some cases, it could close a little bit longer than that as well. So my next question to you is about construction. So now we know, and you covered quite a bit of it about the angles of the shoulders, which is extremely important and which is the hardest to breed out of as well. If you have bad shoulders, that's something you need to work harder to fix it, and it takes a few generations. Now,
Right.
on the aspect of growth plates, do you believe that shoulder angles change with maturity?
Oh, I know they do. I'll give you an example. As a handler, I was asked by a client to buy her a whippet. I don't know if you're aware of this, but whippets have a disqualification on height. And I saw a dog that looked big, but looked really, really pretty otherwise. And the breeder says, yeah, he's big now. He's a 12-month-old dog or 11, 12-month-old dog now. But at 18 months, he will not be as big. And I said, that makes no sense. But you know what? It makes a lot of sense. And let me explain why. More than the growth plates itself. When you talk about front assembly, imagine the rib cage. When the puppy is born, the rib cage is almost like a full perfect circle. As they start growing and developing, the rib cage starts getting flatter and flatter. And the teenager, like us when we were teenagers, looks scrawny, skinny, and elongated and so on. So the rib cage goes, narrower. And then as they mature, when they reach full maturity, you have a bigger spring of ribs, not quite as circular as they were when they were born. But that's the story of the rib cage. Now remember from the slides, the front assembly, the bones of the front assembly, they sit on the rib cage, on the sides of the rib cage, and they're held together by tendons and muscles and ligaments and so on. So it's inevitable that when the rib cage changes with maturity, the front assembly will change. More rib cage, more spring of rib cage, more angulation. Look at a dachshund that has a fairly circular rib cage. You see that layback of shoulder far more slanted, although obviously there are variations, granted, but within reason. Those shoulders, as a rule, are far more slanted than, say, in a Saluki, whose rib cage is really much flatter proportionally. So there you have a very clear, extreme example of the impact of rib cage on front angulation. So as dogs mature, angulation will change. Now, do not expect miracles. If a dog is severely lacking layback of shoulder, there's no maturity that will change that. There's no exercise, there's no massage, there's nothing. A fault is a fault is a fault. It will just become a little less evident as a dog mature. So yes, they shoulders definitely change with maturity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Actually, I'm sorry. Let me just backtrack. I want to complete my answer. I just remembered of something else, so I want to say it. When you look at a puppy, remember, you may see, say, a 12-week-old or 16-week-old puppy, and you have the dog stacked in front of you, and you see those angles exactly like they were supposed to be when the dog is adult. Think of that dog as a dog that potentially will be a little more moderate in angulation. You want a little, at least in the lines that I was used to breeding, you want a little excess when they're younger, because as the dogs develop, not only the rib cage changes, the muscle tone changes. And as they develop muscle tone, angulation is slightly lost. So if you have a dog that has the perfect angles at 16 weeks, 14 weeks, chances are when the dog is full grown, he'll be a little too moderate. So there, I just wanted to say that.
Yes,
sorry.
Thank you. Yes, no. Now the question I have next is about the bite that you covered in your presentation. You mentioned about the wry mouth. Actually, you did touch briefly about the wry mouth, but my next question to you is about the wry mouth. Now, wry mouth is something which is recommended for breeders not to breed out of. If you have a dog with a wry mouth, they say, you know what, that's not a candidate for you to breed out of. So it's considered as a serious fault. Now, in boxers in America, some boxers finish as early as 6, 7 months old.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel that young dogs under 8 months or under a year should be awarded the highest honors, or should they wait till they're matured to make sure that they don't have the wry mouth before they become a champ, before they get awarded the title of a champion?
Wry mouth, let me put things in perspective. A wry bite is as bad as the consequence of the deviation. So a wry bite where a tooth is showing when the mouth is closed is far more severe than a wry bite that doesn't cause that impact. I am very careful when I try to address one fault in particular, because I always try to look at the big picture. And if that particular dog with a bite that may be slightly off has so many other good attributes, maybe I would be willing to consider incorporating that fault and work to solve it later than to just consider the dog out of question. Again, I'm not talking about extremes. I would certainly not breed to a dog whose teeth or tongue are showing, but look at the big picture. That's one thing. The other thing, this is the other question, right? That's an ongoing issue that I guess FCI does not allow a dog to become a champion until there are, if I'm not wrong, 18 months of age. Whereas in America, you can finish a dog from the 6 to 9 puppy class, maybe if you're lucky enough and good enough in one weekend. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've seen these superstars come and go and vanish into the dark and never be talked again. But then again, what would be the importance of a championship if it's being awarded to a dog that's not technically a superior quality dog? I would be open to the concept of dogs finishing, not being allowed to finish after maturity, 18 months or so, depending on the size of the breed. Good question. I'm stumped. I don't know. I can make a good case for either. So probably the safest way to go would be the FCI way, where you say, you know what, at 18 months of age, we know exactly what we have at hand. So why not?
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Now, we as fanciers of the breed, we know what the boxers were bred for. Now, there is also a new fancy amongst the breed, which is actually the Schutzhund type of work with boxers, which involves bite work. Do you advocate bite work in boxers?
Never done it. I've seen it done. The videos I saw, the trials that I watched, it looked to me like a thing that the dog is really trained to do. I'm not against it if this is a sport that you want to pursue. I think that a dog that has a balanced temperament, a dog that can be around kids, that can be around guests at your house, that is a dog that can be dealt with within reason, should be able to be trained to do Schutzhund. Obviously, that requires some amount of prey drive, but also should be able to just sit around and be good to kids and so on. So the bottom line is to have a solid temperament, self-assured, solid temperament. I don't think that bite work itself proves much, other than you may be a very good trainer. And I would put that in the same topic as the showmanship that is so big here in America. To some extent, you can train a dog to look a certain way or to perform a certain way, but you cannot train a dog to have a muzzle that's half the length of the back skull. So breed type and essence of balanced temperament would go first.
Wonderful. We're almost nearing the end, Dan. I just got a couple more questions left for you.
Sure.
Now, I know you actually are on the road now. Again, due to the COVID situation, you're not, but typically you're on the road for close to 40 to 45 weekends in a year. Now, in terms of advice that you would give to a novice fancier who's showing the dogs quite often, how do you keep your show boxes in the right condition and coat?
All right. It's several things. One, obviously, a good diet. There are many people in America and throughout the world that are big advocates of raw diet. I don't oppose to it. I find it difficult to maintain fresh, especially if you're driving and away from home for long periods of time. I like a premium brand of dog food. Again, I will not be promoting one brand over the other. Just the concept that good nutrition is very important. Exercise is very important. But ultimately, the most important thing, like I mentioned in the seminar, these are individuals with emotions and needs. Each one is different, just like we are. Some like some things better than others. And your job, since you are responsible for the dog, whether you're a handler or an owner or a breeder, your job is to understand the needs of that dog and to provide it with those needs so it can be emotionally healthy, not just physically. Dogs crave people attention. I am not in favor of having kennels with 30, 40 dogs for breeding that barely get to see you and barely get to spend time with you. I don't want somebody who works for me to tell me 3 days later, oh, by the way, the dog had upset stomach 3 days ago. I want to be there and I want to see it. I am there every morning. I'm there every night. I greet them good morning. I give them a treat good night. Some of the dogs that come to me that are house dogs, they will spend their life with me as a house dog, which means sleeping in the bed and spending time on the couch and so on, and give them a good, safe, fenced-in yard in the back where they can run and play. That is probably one of the most important things, because if you really can understand a dog, even though they don't talk, they will tell you what they need. So turn your back to them. Give them a safe home, good diet, good exercise. Make sure that they are not laying on cement, developing calluses and things that ultimately look like a neglect to their needs. Look at dogs as individuals, understand their emotions, and once you do, everything else falls in place. They'll tell you they want to run, they'll tell you they want to play, and they'll tell you it's time to just relax and unwind and rest. So that's how I see it, and that's how we try to do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dan. Just got a last question here for you. Now, I know in one of your interviews that I saw you, and again, that's something you also shared in the seminar as well. You actually mentioned about Kudos Cache, which yes. when you first came to United States and you saw this show, you saw Kudos Cache, and that inspired you a lot. Now, my question to you is, which dog in the past do you wish you could have owned or showed, and why is that?
Okay. In 1978, allow me to date myself a little. In 1978, my parents brought me to America, and I saw Stan Flowers show a bitch called Sarah Zach's Moonglow. She won the national that year, and I have to say, everything about her, perfection. The style, the carriage, the build. I remember my mentor Philomena Bala saying, now you have to fight 3 faults. And I turned to her in my mind and said, I can't. She's just so beautiful. Tourist Cachet, Sarazak's Moonglow could be a big winner today, could be a big winner at any time. She had the head, the neck, the substance, the balance, you name it. She was breathtaking. She's part of my mental template. When I breed dogs or when I advise people about breeding dogs, I'm always looking at her in my mind and say, get a little bit of this look. That's the one. When you look at the slides that on the presentation I gave, when you have male and female, I'm talking about that female is Sarazak's Moonglow. That's her.
Wonderful.
And actually, the dog that's sitting next to her, that's Milan's Fashion Hint, that's her grandfather. So
wonderful.
That's my bio right there. That's what I like.
That's the type. That's the type there for you. Yes.
That's the one.
Yes. Wonderful, Dan. Again, I want to actually thank you for such an informative presentation and also an insightful interview. I'm sure there's a lot of learning that actually comes observing people who have accomplished, and you certainly have accomplished a lot. Any parting thoughts about what is in store for Dan in terms of you've actually checked most of those boxes, but what keeps you going? And that would be your parting thoughts.
What keeps me going? Sometimes I call this the triumph of passion over common sense. I am really a passionate boxer lover, and that is a fuel that keeps me going. When you go to a dog show and say you have a lineup of top specials and all these famous dogs from all over the country are here and you're looking at them all, that is an exciting sight to see. But I will tell you this, when I see in a puppy class or in a younger class a promising puppy that still has what I call an effervescent feeling, and I crave that. I had the chance to go to some dog shows last weekend, and I saw a couple of puppies, different breeds, but this young and up and coming that tells me, oh my God, there's something to look forward to in the future, something bright, something promising, and that keeps me going. As far as what's in the future for me, I don't know. I don't know. I know I make a lot of decisions, my life decisions that are based on my passion. Some I regret, others, most of them I'm very proud of. I hope I keep learning from my mistakes. I hope I can be true to my values. I hope I can be true to my passions, and I hope to be surrounded by people that are just as crazy about what I do as I am. And that's what keeps me going. So who knows? Maybe when my body says you can't show dogs anymore, maybe my mind will allow me to judge them. Who knows?
Wonderful.
We'll see.
Wonderful. Very, very, very eloquently answer that the final question, Dan.
Thank you.
I found this interview very informative and as well as inspiring, and I'm sure the viewers found it as well. Again, I want to take a moment to thank my team, which is working in the background to make this happen. My team comprises of Kadir Narayan, Sushant, Satish, and Jaisima. Again, Dan, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks again for doing this.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I'm always open to talk and share ideas and passions and so on. So thank you so much to you, to your team, and everybody who spent time with us today. It was a great, great pleasure.
Wonderful. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.
You do the same. Bye.